In today's episode, I'm chatting about how to make those temporary living spaces like dorms, apartments, and short-term houses actually feel like home. If you've ever moved into a new place and felt like you don't know how to decorate or even where to get started, don't worry. I'm going to give you some easy tips and little touches that you can make to cozy up your space and make it feel more you. Whether you're just starting out in college or moving around for work, come hang out and let's make your temporary spot feel like a true home. Hello guys, welcome back to the With My Own Two Hands podcast. I'm your host, McKenna Lee, and if you are watching on the YouTube channel, you are seeing a change in scenery. I'm actually sitting in our baby's nursery, a space that I designed earlier this year over the span of a couple of months. It's so cute, but the actual reason that I'm up here is not because it's cute. It's actually because there might be 7 to 8 tradesmen downstairs, like contractor work is being done on our kitchen. This is the final week that we are going to be working on the contractor work of our kitchen renovation, and then I can go in and actually start doing my thing. So it's like crunch time. I put like the pressure to it. Like I'm like, we have to finish. Like we're approaching 5 months of this kitchen renovation, which is definitely longer than I had anticipated. But, thinking back on it, like we obviously wanted to do our kitchen renovation because we had a baby on the way, and the kitchen as it wasn't like super functional for us. There was a lot of dead space. And if you've seen any of the series over on my YouTube channel, you know all of the issues that we had with our kitchen. Now, were the issues like so detrimental that we could have postponed the kitchen renovation for a while? No, like we could have. But when I started to think about the fact that my baby was on the way, he's 2 months now, which is crazy also, and he was on the way, and I couldn't imagine doing all of this work when he was like a toddler. I thought if I didn't do it now, I wouldn't be able to do it for years. So I pulled the trigger, kind of thing. I was like, okay, we have to do it now. It makes sense. I was obviously able to film the process, and it really gave me a project to put my mind into and my energy into while I was pregnant without actually having to do the laboring or of the work. So looking back on it, would I have changed my mind about doing the renovation if I knew it was going to take 5 months? No, I would have still done it. But at least I would have known it was going to take 5 months and not 3. If you've watched any of the episodes so far, or any of the episodes where I talk about contractor work or renovation work, including the last episode where I shared 10 things I wish I would have known before renovating my house, you know that it never finishes on time. And especially when you're building a space like I am, where it's incredibly custom, things like that take time, and they also have to happen in order. So it's not something that you can actually like prep for or know beforehand. Some things are, just ever evolving. So, you do one thing and you're like, okay, what else does it need? Or let's fix that mistake, or let's pivot and do something different because it was so custom. So in the end, it's all worth it, but it is the final week. They will be done tomorrow morning, which is Saturday. And I'm actually recording this the day you're going to be seeing it or listening to it, because there has been someone here every day and I couldn't record. I mean, there is people and noise and hammers and paint sprayers and all the things happening downstairs that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to record audio. I don't know how I'm going to, film any of this. So I'm like, you know what? I'm moving up to the nursery. I'm going to shut all the doors. We're going to make it work. And I'm going to produce this episode. So here we are. So I'm actually excited about this episode. The topic came from one of you guys, and I have the form where you send in your design dilemmas or topics that you want to discuss or see on the podcast, which you can always reference in the show notes of every episode. So Caitlin actually sent in this topic, and it spawned a lot of ideas about, and a lot of thoughts in my head about temporary spaces, and when we live in temporary spaces and things like that. So I thought about this house and how this, to me, because we're putting so much love and effort and design and money into this property, it does feel like a forever home. And you can get really attached to something that you put this much love and energy into and money into, obviously. It's unrealistic of me to think that this is the only home that I'm ever going to own in my life being in my 30s. I don't think that that's realistic, especially when I do the job that I do, and I do, I love homes, and I love to do things to my house. And when I run out of things to do in my house, am I going to, want a new project kind of thing? And also on a whole other side of it, building my real estate portfolio and things like that for my own personal life. It's unrealistic to think that this is going to be my only home, but I do get emotionally attached to homes. And will we outgrow this home? We obviously just had our first baby, and we have every intention on having another one. We always imagined having 2 kids, and especially since I thoroughly enjoyed being pregnant, I thoroughly enjoyed my birth, journey of giving birth to our son, even though it was quite a long and lengthy process of 18 hours of labor. I still loved every second of it. So I thrived in that time. And now obviously he's 2 months and we are over the moon in love and can't stop staring at him. So we want more kids. So if that happens, will we outgrow this home? So I actually looked on Zillow and I was like, let me just peruse. I do that a lot. I actually deleted the Zillow app from my phone after we bought this property because I was like, I don't want to go through that process again. I needed a detox from it. I was like, let me see what's out there. Let me see, what houses are going for. I have no intention on moving, especially after all we invested in the kitchen. I absolutely love this house. Right now, I'm very much in the mindset of you could not drag me away from this house. Like I would kick and scream. But I just wanted to see what was out there because of this topic of this episode. I didn't see a thing I would buy that could ever come close to this property, which makes me feel so much more attached to it and so much more in love with it and making it feel like a forever home. So we're very much putting the energy and effort into this home, making it feel like that forever home, right? So I'm hoping we don't outgrow it too quickly. But the topic that Caitlin sent in was, how does one make changes to a home knowing it's not your forever home? We bought a house in 2023 and my fiance is already saying he wants to move in 3-ish years. The biggest reason is size, especially if we want to have a family someday. I want to do all the things to our current home, like change the flooring. They are low quality and starting to show damage, but we don't want to invest in good quality flooring if we're not going to stay here. I want to paint all the wood trim, get new white doors. The current ones are hollow wood doors. I want to add a focal point in the bedroom with nice trim detail. We want to change the landscaping, as the previous owner was big into landscaping and gardening, but I don't have the time or the green thumb to take care of it. My fiance wants to expand the driveway because parking is limited and we can't have many people over. I just struggle to fathom making changes and investing money and time if we aren't staying. I get sentimentally attached to, which is same with me. I know everyone says invest in what's going to sell and add value to your home, but I don't know what the limit is to that. So that's what spawned me thinking about this. I'm like, you know what? I actually thought about my own house. I was like, you know what? I do have this like tug of war between myself, my own self, that I'm like, I'd love for this to be my forever home, but is that realistic and will we outgrow it? And I don't think that we'll move in 3-ish years, but especially when you're living in a temporary space, like you're in a dorm room or you're in an apartment building and that's very, very temporary, or you're in a home, you own a home that you just know already is temporary. What is the limit? Like, what do you do in order to make a temporary space feel like home without overdoing it and just wasting time and money? And when you don't really know what's going to add value to your home, if you're going to sell it, or you're in an apartment situation where you know you're going to move from there eventually. It's a lot. There's a lot of questions that came up. So I have personally lived in 9 different apartments in my life so far. There was a stage where I would move pretty quickly. It was like a year here or a year there, and I would get bored and tired and outgrow it, and I would need something different. Or we were trying to downsize when I was changing my career, and we had to move to save money. Romeo and I both have lived in lots of different apartments, and also before that, I lived in the dorm while I was going to design school. in downtown Los Angeles, Romeo would hate it because I always wanted to move and he never wanted to move. He's like, really, McKenna? I'm like, yeah, we have to. We're going to save money. And he was like, but we have to move all of our stuff. I was like, it's just downstairs. Not a big deal. So it was like from the third floor to the first floor or vice versa. I did that a lot. I did that in like 3 different apartment buildings we were in. To then us moving to save money into the last apartment that we had together that we were actually in for about 6 years. And that was the one we were in through the pandemic and for several years before that. And then also the apartment we kept while I was renovating the cottage in Texas. So that whole time we had the same apartment. That apartment was more of a house in a sense. It was a 4-plex, so it had windows all the way around except for one side that was attached to the rest, so it felt more like a house. It didn't have any elevators. We were on the ground level, so it felt more homey for sure. Through all of those places, I have had to do a lot of things to make a temporary space feel like home. So I guess the first question is, like, why do we want it to feel like home? We know it's temporary. Why do we crave that sense of home? You know, even when we know we're going to have to change and move and it's probably a waste of money. And I do think that some people don't care. Like I have known a lot, have had a lot of friends. I've just known people in general that just don't care. They think it's 4 walls and a place to sleep and eat and they go to work. You know, it's just a place that they need to like almost house their stuff. They don't care about the way that it's decorated. They don't care about it doing more than it needs to do besides function. I don't think that those people are listening to this podcast. I don't think that they're going to be clicking on a podcast episode to listen to that literally titled, you know, like how to transform a temporary space into a place to call home at all. So we don't have to worry about them. But I do think that some people don't care. And then I also think that some people have a level of caring. You know, they want it to be nice, but they don't want to overdo it. And then there's the other end of the spectrum like me, and I think some of you guys, where you crave it. Like it's something that is in me that I crave. Like I have to have my space feel like me, inspire me, have aesthetically pleasing, have it functional, you know, all the things. And it doesn't matter if it's temporary or it's someplace that I'm going to stay for a really long time and I don't see the end. You know, maybe it's a decade later, you know, that I'll move. It doesn't matter if I'm staying there 6 months or 10 years. I need it to feed my soul. I need it to be exactly what I want it to be. My space means a lot to me. I think it affects a lot of not only obviously my work, but it affects my mind, like my creativeness. It's like if I'm in a space that isn't well planned or functional or fluid or designed, it can make me, you know, sad. You know, it can make me go to a negative place and I don't want that. So I do the most to make any space feel like me. I also spend a lot of time at home. I work from home. I think a lot of us transitioned into that, you know, from during the pandemic, you know, having to go remote and work from home and having your space do multiple functions for you. So spending more time at home made you care more about maybe making those 4 walls more important or more designed or work better for you because you were seeing it a lot more. You know, I think that my home for me is like my sanctuary. It's my escape from the world. I can close the door and lock all the doors and like I'm inside and it's like my space, you know. So I always want my spaces to feel really good and like me. I think over time, especially in my last apartment that I was in for 6 years and sharing those projects that I was doing online, I had to really come up with creative ways to make that apartment feel like home without spending a ton of money. For one, I didn't have the money to spend. Romeo and I had decided that, you know, I was going to leave my corporate job and we were going to be living on savings for a while I figured out my next step in life to be really happy because I wasn't happy. And I left and he was working and we were trying to make ends meet and we had blown through all of our savings and I was trying to build a business and freelancing where I could and doing odd things to get by. And I really wanted to make my house a home or apartment a home and also share my projects. And it was the money was very, very limited and we were on a very small budget. That's when I started thrifting, and all of that happens. And I think some incredible creative ideas can come out of when you're limited in any way, that in any shape or form, really. I started flipping things for my house in terms of decor. I started doing like little things here and there over time to make it feel more and more like home. This topic idea also made me think about another temporary space, which is a dorm room. So I lived in a dorm when I was in college, and my niece is actually starting college at FITM, my college. Well, it's not FITM anymore. It's ASU. FITM got bought by ASU. That's a whole nother conversation. But she is starting college this year, and she's about to be moving into her dorm like within a matter of a week and a half or so before they start school. And so she's been thinking a lot about what she's going to buy and what she needs, because when you live in a dorm, you obviously live with someone else. And when you go to FITM, I don't know how they're doing it now, but when I was in a dorm, I had 3 other roommates. So we actually lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, and each apartment would come furnished to a specific point. They would obviously give us a bed, a mattress, a desk for each person, and then they would furnish the living room. So there was like a couch and a console and maybe an end table of some sort, if I'm remembering right, and a dining room table and chairs. So they would provide the basics, for you in the dorm. I think that goes with a lot of dorms. I don't think a lot of dorms have a dining room. So they didn't have a dining room table, but since we were in an apartment, we had more space, and there was 4 of us. So we just were kind of responsible for bringing in the other things, like the decor elements, like bedding, obviously a pillow, maybe something for the walls and something for our desk and a laundry basket, and maybe a few things here and there. But when you're in a dorm and you're sharing a space with 3 other people, the common areas are really hard to decorate. It also feels very temporary because you could be moving out of there every quarter. So FITM worked on a quarter system, which was every 3 months we would have a new set of classes, and we could actually move to a different apartment. Maybe we weren't getting along with our roommates, or like maybe some people had dropped out and somebody else was moving in, or you had to move around. So every quarter things were changing. So that's even more of a temporary space, only being somewhere for 3 months with people that you don't know when you move in most of the time, unless you're really lucky and you know someone that's going to your same school. And you've all got different styles, and you've always got different wants and likes. It's like, how do you decorate a space like that? For sure. So I think you have to agree on a lot of stuff. And I think that adds a whole nother layer of how to make a temporary space feel like home when you also have to have things that your roommates like. I decorated my little corner of this apartment pretty well. I mean, I just made it feel like me. I had really plush bedding. I had some, like art on the walls. Gosh, I don't even have a picture. I wish I did. I had some art like in my corner where my bed sat in the corner. I had pretty things like a plant and things on my desk. And I didn't know anyone in Los Angeles. So my little corner of my dorm was the only thing that I had, really, until I made friends, but I didn't have any family out here or anything. So I don't ever think that we added anything extra to the living room. I had a lot of foreign exchange people that I lived with that didn't speak really well English either my first quarter. And it's just, it was hard. So I hope that my niece actually gets to decorate, and she actually knows her roommates. So she's probably going to be decorating the common areas. But I think in terms of like dorms, especially when you're that age, like you're in your late teens, early 20s going to college, you want to make, I would definitely want to make sure that I'm buying things on a budget, because you don't really take care of things as well at that age as you do later on in life. Maybe some people do. I know I probably wouldn't. That's why IKEA, going to dorm, you moving into your dorm or, your first apartment, IKEA is such a destination for people, because it is more of that. It hits that price point, and it is more of that temporary. I know that they don't market themselves as that, but I think that all of us I mean, I think that way. It's like, this is like starter furniture. That's how I think about the product itself. I was excited as I got older to age out of, like when I bought my first piece of furniture after leaving the dorms, and I had lived in a couple of apartments, that the IKEA stuff really stuck with me. It really lasted like a long time. I got my first dresser, which is actually the dresser that I was supposed to use in this space that we still have in this house that I cannot part with. I got it from West Elm. I remember it was like $1,000 and I was like, oh my God. Okay. And I still have it. And I bought that probably in 2011. I remember being really excited about that. It wasn't a piece that was temporary. I felt like I was growing up. Like I felt really good about that. It does make sense to like buy on a budget when you're in a temporary space for sure, like a dorm. And there's also restrictions on what the dorm and like housing will let you do. So we could tape stuff up to the walls, I think, but I don't think that we could put any nails in the walls. We definitely couldn't paint. They came regularly and like looked at our apartment too. So it's not like we could do anything and like change it. It was limited, but at least we had those furniture pieces from them to start, so we didn't have to spend too much. It was right around that time, my dorm room days and early career, that I was in love, obsessed with a very specific style of shoe. I know, really random, but I was. It was this flat slip-on mule that had a pointed toe, and I had them in 2 colors because they looked great with everything and made my foot look really slender. They were from a brand called Jenny Kane. So when they reached out to sponsor today's episode, I got really excited. I've obviously loved the brand for a long time, like over a decade now, not only because of the style, but also the quality. I'm actually wearing one of their cashmere cropped sweaters right now, which is the perfect layer for any season, but especially as we welcome fall really soon. Jenny Kane is a California-based brand, and their staple pieces make getting dressed effortless. They are known for their super luxe yet lightweight sweaters, and they really do relax knits better than anyone. The Cooper cardigan is so cute with its button accents and flattering silhouette. They also have a beautiful home decor collection too that you can check out. Jenny Kane is here to help you live your best season yet, and for a limited time, you guys can get 15% off your first order. Go to jennykane.com and use code XO15 to get 15% off. They focus on comfort, quality, and timeless design so that you can really curate a wardrobe that never goes out of style. Find your new uniform at jennykane.com and get 15% off your first order when you use code XO15 at checkout. That's 15% off your first order at jennykayne.com with promo code XO15. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about and embrace your summer aesthetic with Jenny Kane. If you're looking to upgrade your bedroom with quality bedding, you have to check out Cozy Earth. A big thank you to Cozy Earth for sponsoring this episode. You can get 30% off at cozyearth.com/cozyxo and use code CozyXO at checkout. We have been having such warmer days as summer really is here and here to stay for a little bit, I think. And I actually like to swap out our bedding depending on the weather, opting for a material that's cooler to the touch and more breathable. Cozy Earth sheets are celebrated for their softness, breathability, and temperature regulating fabrics, making them the perfect choice this season. Their sheet sets come in 17 beautiful colors so that you can easily pair your bedding with the other decor elements in your bedroom, and they only get softer with every wash. All bedding and bath products come with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, so you can try out their products for yourself and really get to experience the quality and softness. This summer, transform your home into a sanctuary with Cozy Earth. Get 30% off at cozyearth.com/cozyxo using code CozyXO at checkout, and tell them I sent you in the post-purchase survey, and you'll get a free pair of Cozy Earth socks. Then after I moved out of the dorms my first year in college, I had my first apartment in Los Angeles, and I spent years doing renter-friendly DIYs. I mean, you think 9 apartments in 17 years. So I spent a ton of time with different landlords making renter-friendly updates to make these spaces feel like home to me. I did get smarter about figuring out where I could live and what apartment I would choose based on what the landlord would let me do, because I had lived in so many big buildings where I couldn't really change much And there was a huge lack of sunlight in most of these big buildings because you just had windows along one side of the apartment. And I really wanted something different. That's why we rented that last apartment that we were in. And the landlord would let me do some things. He was a little bit more lenient with me. And I think that he just had a mentality of like, well, as long as we can change it back or it's improving the property, he didn't care, so he began to start trusting me, and that was really good. So I started thinking like that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask up front what the landlord would let me do so that I can get into a space and a lease at an apartment that I can actually change and actually make like more me. I did like peel and stick wallpaper was a big one. It did not ruin the walls at all, the one that I used, which was great. I used peel and stick tile in the kitchen to give a subway tile look because I hated the little tile that they had in the kitchen. I did swap out the light fixtures because it kind of goes into the mindset of like, I'm going to change everything that I can change back. If I can change it well and I can change it back well, and they never even know, I know my landlords around the world are going to hate me, but probably hated me when I was showing everybody this in my apartment. If you can change it and then you can change it back, and you can feel better about where you live in the meantime, why not? Especially if you can change it back and take the thing that you changed it to with you. Did that make sense? Did I use too many words in that? If you can change it and still own that piece and take it with you when you leave to your next temporary apartment or temporary space, why not? It's not money wasted for sure. It's something that you own and you can still have, and you can change it back to whatever the landlord had beforehand, and no one's the wiser. Here, you can change your own light fixture. It is fairly simple, I will tell you, as long as you're safe and you turn off the electricity and don't electrocute yourself and you do it right. So I'm not recommending to anyone to do it if they don't know how to do it or aren't willing to learn the right way. But I changed out the light fixtures in some of the places that I lived because it could offer me such a better sense of light and design and an element that I love, and then just save the one that I took down and put it back up when I leave. In the kitchen specifically, I swapped out all the handles to ones that I liked. They were all silver in our kitchen, I remember. So I swapped them all to black because I wanted a contrasting look to the cabinets because they were white. And I swapped them. Well, actually, I could have swapped them back, but I was like, I don't need these. So I offered them to him and I left them up, but I left him his originals. So he got out ahead. He got new handles that looked way better than the silver ones. They were also kind of dingy. They needed to be changed anyways. I did leave those, but I could have swapped them out for sure. Paint is something you can change back. It is. But I think the only problem that apartment buildings, especially older ones, run into is that, like, how many layers of paint can you put onto a wall before it just starts getting cakey and thick? I feel like that could be an issue. And that was definitely an issue in our last apartment because every time someone would move out, he would hire a team of painters to come in and paint the whole thing. So it layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of white paint would go into these walls and the baseboards, and it would start to cake up. And especially if they painted over hardware and stuff, it was caked on. So I do think there's a detriment over time and over many, many, many years to painting, which is why a lot of buildings won't let you do it. A lot of apartments won't let you do it. But some apartments you can, as long as you change it back when you leave, you can paint. So the paint depends on definitely your landlord and where you live. If you want to get really advanced, something I did swap out and swap back was the kitchen faucet. I did learn how, and I changed the plumbing. I mean, think about it. It's just water. So if you can make sure that you have no leaks, that's your goal. So I did swap it out and we swapped it back. If you look at your apartment, you have to think first, what am I limited by my landlord? What are our possibilities on what they're willing to let me do? And what can I change that'll make me love this space more, that I can change back and no one would ever know the difference? My landlord will never know. I always got nervous if whoever owned the apartment building would come over to fix something. I always got super nervous. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to see that I did that. And they're not going to realize that I could just change it back and blah, 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 blah. I would get kind of uncomfortable. So if you get any uncomfortable like that, like me, definitely run it by your landlord, like so that he's aware, or they're aware of what you're doing, or if it's okay. So if you're renting and you're in an apartment or any kind of rental property and you want resources for how to transform those spaces to just be a little more you and a little more like home, there's obviously great YouTubers that you can watch. I have some old videos for sure. Of course, I did a little more than the average would let you, like the landlords would let you. Drew from Lone Fox, obviously, he lived right down the street from me. We both did rental-friendly DIYs for a long time. He also has some great YouTube videos and great resources that you can go back and watch. He owns his home now, so he's doing more advanced stuff, but he did the same thing as me for a really long time in a rental property. And I think Alexandra Gator, if you don't follow her and you have a small space and you're renting, she has great resources. She still does that type of content now, and she's killing it. So if definitely go check her out. I know like we all have our specific styles as design content creators online, but you can use it and take it for what it's worth. Like maybe the technique or what we're doing is something that you can incorporate, but in your own style. Like peel and stick wallpaper. If I did it, it's the concept of it and not really the specific paper that I picked. It could be in your style. Definitely check out some YouTubers online. I feel like there are still so many people that are doing renter-friendly DIYs, even though I personally don't do many of them anymore unless I'm doing a makeover for a friend. So when it comes to homes, though, now you own the property. You're not limited by a landlord. No one can tell you what to do anymore, except a homeowners association. If you have one of those, we do not. I always look at that when I'm looking at properties to make sure there isn't a homeowners association. I mean, there are great things about a homeowners association, and there's not so great things. They're restrictive, but also they keep everything looking nice and good, and there's a guideline to it. I don't have a homeowners association, so we've never had anyone look at us and we don't have to run anything by anybody, right? But if you're in a situation where you know that it's not your forever home, and you know that you're not going to be living there for an extended period of time, but you're also not restricted by anyone, and you could do whatever you wanted, what is the limit? And my perspective is that I don't want to live anywhere for any amount of time, no matter if it's 3 months like the dorm or 10 years. I don't want to live in either place for any amount of time without making it feel like home. I'm a person that you'd ask that I would be on the extreme side of making it feel more like home for sure. That being said, I know that there are limits. I think that sometimes we can look at a house and want to do all of these things, but like, does it really make sense? And I think you just have to have a level head about it, and you have to know where you're at financially, where you're at in terms of the time that you're going to spend, and with your partner, and figure out together what's most important to you. You know what I mean? Because there are some things that would be super important to me to do to my home, even if I wasn't staying for very long, versus you. You would do completely different things, and you're going to care about completely different things. You really have to be picky about what you want. And if you look at your house, what I would do is I would step back and say, what bothers me the most? What do I think I can do? What's one thing I can do to the house to make it significantly better for me? And that could be a ton of different things. That could be, you could be someone like me that doesn't like white walls. That's like, I have to paint. It bothers me a lot. Being in sterile white rooms, it bothers me a lot. I have to paint. Or you could be someone that's like, I love to entertain. I love for people to come over. I really want to expand the driveway so that I can have more people park. Like Caitlin that sent in her topic, like maybe that's the most important thing to you. So if you figure that out and figure it out with your partner, you're going to know where to start. And I think sometimes we can think about all the things that need to be done. You could make a whole list of things that you actually want to be done, but what actually is the most important to you? And if you start there, I think that you'll be a lot further ahead than just this overwhelming list of possibilities. Like Caitlin said, she's like, I know people say like, do what's going to increase your home value, like do what makes sense and put the money where it actually is going to have a return. And that's so true. You know what I mean? Like that is really what you should focus on, I guess. So if they happen to align, like if the things that you can do to your home will actually add value and also align with what's most important to you, that's like a slam dunk. Like that's like that you should do right now. Like you shouldn't even hesitate. Like you should dive in. Like our kitchen. Our kitchen was not only going to add value overall to this home, and we could see like a 60% return on our investment, and we would get to enjoy the kitchen for the next decade. And it's really important to us and how we function and live as a family. It's a no-brainer. That's why we pulled the trigger. Probably the most costly renovation that you can do in a home is the kitchen, because there's so many elements to it, especially when you do it like us, when you take it down to the studs and restructure the room itself with the ceiling and everything. It will definitely be the most costly, but when you think about all of the things that you're going to get to enjoy about it in the meantime, and then you are going to get such a substantial amount of your money back when you sell, it's still a no-brainer. So if those things start to align, even better. Always like to put design dilemmas in every episode. So these are renter specific or temporary space specific from what you guys sent in. And first we have to talk about Caitlin, because she's the one that sent in this topic that spawned this idea. So I read you what she sent in, but in a nutshell, she wants to change the flooring because it's low quality and showing damage. She wants to paint all the wood trim. She wants to get new doors and add trim and change the landscaping and expand the driveway. So she's got her list, but which one is important to you? Which one is both important to you and your partner, even if you're only staying there for 3 years? Like, do you walk in and something bothers you every day? Is it the floors? Because I can tell you, that's pretty smart to change out, especially if they're showing damage. That will be not only the smart one to do for your property value, but if it's also the thing that's bothering you the most because you see it throughout your house, kind of a no-brainer to do. But also, every change doesn't have to be smart. It doesn't have to be that like adding that value to your home. It could just be what you value the most. It could be like you're looking at your house and you see the wood trim. I don't think painting the wood trim would have any significant change in your property value or really impact it at all. But if it's this one thing that's the eyesore for you and that you don't like that wood trim, that could be what you need to do. And it could feed your soul, not looking at I don't know what it looks like, but maybe it's crazy or maybe just outdated and you just want to update it. And I'm not saying that it won't add any to your property value. I think a lot of what adds to your property value is when people come to tour your home and come to your open house or see your pictures on the listing. I think that a lot of those smaller things that we don't think that will add tons of value actually end up adding the value because they're looking at pictures of the home. If let's say it's a crazy wood trim and it's, I don't know, flat trim from the 70s and it's like that it's like yellowed oak and it's aged a lot over time. I don't know. I think that someone looking at it from a modern and contemporary perspective, and the contemporary buyer today would look at that and say, ugh. And by you painting it, you're already saying, ugh. So by you painting it, you're doing yourself a favor, no matter if it's like really monetary value, but it might be that you're going to get the sale because they weren't distracted by something that you already had a problem with. And also, it's going to change how you feel over the next 3 years about your property. And I think that that has a lot of value. But if I was just to look at your list of things, what was going to add the most value, I definitely think changing the floors editing down the yard in terms of maintenance is also a good win because everyone today is so busy. Not everyone has a green thumb, me included. We bought this property and had a ton of garden. Like we have flowers, different types of flowers everywhere. But what we do have is a maintenance system built in. So we have a sprinkler system. We have a gardener that comes. We have the things in place to help us maintain it without me having to have a green thumb all the time as I'm learning, and I like to take care of my garden now, but we still have those things in place to help me. So either editing down the garden or putting in the maintenance help to help you over the next 3 years, but also the next buyer as they, come in. Maybe they would love the idea of having a yard with tons of landscaping, but they also don't know how to care for it, but it's already taken care of. I also think expanding the driveway could help if it's to the point that you say you can't have it's like a one car kind of thing. I think it would be lower on the list. I don't think that would deter people from buying the house at all. But I think it could also be a plus. And I think no's, just in terms of is this really going to move the needle on what's quote unquote smart to do in the house? Is it going to add value? Would be the doors. A lot of people aren't like us and they don't knock on the doors in the house when they tour, because I do that. I can tell if a door is hollow or not, hollow or solid. And you can tell the quality of the build by that as well, how much money they spent on the doors. So I don't think that the average buyer does that. So I think that would be lower on the list to do. And also adding trim anywhere. I feel that would be lower. That's more of a stylistic choice over it's not going to appease everyone. Definitely appease us. We would love trim, but I think that would be lower on the list. And I totally hear you about being sentimentally attached to places. I get sentimentally attached. I got sentimentally attached to the cottage with all of the work that I was putting in and all the love and the sweat and the tears that have gone into that property and still will go into it. I'm very sentimentally attached. I'm also sentimentally attached to this house. I think that it's impossible to avoid just caring about something that you love. And so you just kind of have to go with it. So if you're investing in it, just know that you invested in the 3 years in the right way, and you loved your home instead of thinking of it oh, that 3 years was, I lived in that house. I hated that house. I just did it because I knew we were selling it. That's kind of sad. That's not fun, for anybody. That's not fun for you. So our next design dilemma is for Tamsin, which is such a cool name. She's from South Africa and she's renting a flat. And she says, this is my 4th year in this flat and I still feel like the cohesive area, the main living room and dining area, feels weird. The lounge and dining area is one large space, so it's open concept. And I have a number of inherited and thrifted pieces, but none of them feel like they connect. The wall space is what's throwing me. There's a fireplace in the center of the main wall that is off center, which kills my soul. And that's such a time period too when they did that. It's not always just because it had to be off center. That was a stylistic design decision whenever it was built. There is no mantle, but in South Africa, all of ours are brick. So adding any kind of picture wall or beadboard would be tricky. Another area of frustration is that the flat is extremely dark. I'd love to lighten up the room using paint or just re-looking at the furniture choices, but I'm struggling to decide if I should do a feature wall with paint, something to further define the two spaces, but then which wall? Or do I change up the layout? I've had the furniture in about 101 different ways, but would appreciate your perspective. The artwork on the walls is also a bit mismatched. A lot of them I've done over the years, inspired by something fun you've done. The macrame era was a strong one. I was strong in my macrame era when I lived in that apartment. That last apartment when I started my channel. I loved macrame. I was very much in my boho era. Okay, so here's some of the pictures of her space, and you can see that it is open concept. It's one long room, and the main areas in apartments are often like this. Unless you're in a totally different style of apartment, which is definitely rare here in the States too. If you're in a big building, most of the time the common areas will be all within the same room together, they're all joining, so it's more open. And so she's got Right when you walk in, she passes her kitchen and then she enters the dining room area where there's the off asymmetrical fireplace wall, and then the living room all the way at the end where the light is coming in. So something that's really hard with apartments, like I mentioned, is sunlight, and optimizing daylight, optimizing light is so hard because you can imagine you're in a big building. The walls are all kind of adjoining with other apartments. So there's only really that one wall where you maybe have a balcony or your windows, all run along one wall. And it makes it really dark in places that are further back from those light sources, like your kitchen or your bathroom. I think all of the bathrooms that I had in apartments, except for that last one, did not have a window. So it was like a black hole, or the hallways are always dark. The kitchens are usually dark. The light sources are usually in the living room and the bedroom. So something that can help with the lack of sunlight and natural daylight is optimizing the lighting, like artificial lighting throughout your house. So I see you have 2 fixtures that are in the ceiling, one in the living room and one in the dining room, and of course one in the kitchen. But they're quite small. And I feel, I don't know, please check to see if you even can in South Africa. But here you can change out light fixtures if you know how. So, or hire someone to do it. When in doubt, please hire. Like, I'm not recommending anyone do anything unsafe. So if the lighting is not throwing enough light, you can change out the light fixtures, and also I would bring in lamp light. I would bring in more light sources. So like right when you walk in and past your kitchen, you have the buffet area. And I would definitely put a light source there. I would put a lamp or 2 lamps, really do it up there to add more light further back from the daylight source. And also you have one I see on the end table, and it's small, is shooting up onto the wall. I'd add another one, like a floor lamp somewhere, optimize the light in other ways, because you mentioned like maybe paint color could help brighten the area. I think your paint color right now is like a beige, like a off-white. I don't think that going to like a pure white is going to optimize it anymore. I don't think it's going to give you any more brightness than it's already giving you. What you really need is just more light sources. I do see like all your furniture is like kind of mismatched. Like each couch is a different color, but you have your furniture in a really good spot. I think that you've done a good job of delineating the spaces. The furniture just all is different, either different wood tones, like from the console with your TV to your dining room table and buffet. Those are very different. Both couches are different, even though they're a similar like style. Then you have your coffee table, which is pulling a little bit of the detail from the dining room, which I like. Keeping your furniture more light in color, like lighter wood tones and lighter fabrics, will keep helping your apartment feel light and airy, for sure. It's unrealistic to think that you're going to go out and buy all new furniture. So maybe if there's something you can upcycle, make it lighter, like the underneath your TV lighter or something like that. In terms of furniture position, I think you're on the right track. I think that the layout does work. So the back of the couch faces the dining room, separating the 2 spaces. I think there's one other thing that I think you can try, and you probably already have, but I really like this like half wall thing that's behind where your couch is right now. I would want to use that to my advantage, I think, in styling the room. I would actually flip the couch to the opposite wall. So switch the TV and the couch wall, and actually mount the TV, if you can, mount the TV above this half little pony wall thing that's happening, and make it more of a whole unit. Like make the wall like your console, like your TV console. Hang the TV on the wall, use the shelf of the top of the half wall to your advantage and decorate it, and maybe even build something out below it for your books and things. I see you have like a bookshelf on the other side in your dining room, and lots of stuff in your console under your TV. So you could build out something really, if you're handy, you could build out something really cool on that wall, but using the shape of it to your advantage. Because oftentimes open concept can feel very cluttered because there's so much happening in the room and there's so many pieces, because they have the room has so many different functions. So keeping your furniture minimal but making the furniture pieces more intentional can help. So it's like you want to limit the amount of pieces you need to make the rooms divided. So you have two couches, like one couch and then one like love seat. I would opt, if in a perfect world you could get more couches, I would opt for an L-shaped couch because it would eliminate one of the pieces and one of the color elements too. It would be one unit. And then I would still put the L, separating the two spaces like you have like with the love seat. Also, having furniture that's more enclosed in an open concept will help it look less cluttered. Like you have the bookshelf in your dining room and the buffet with lots of decor, and then the console under your TV, but they're all exposed. The buffet isn't exposed, but the other two are. So you see a lot of more stuff. And that's great when it's very intentional. But if you do find that you're just, when you look at the room, if you look at lots of things and there isn't really a focal point, having furniture that has doors and can be enclosed as more storage that's not exposed will help it look cleaner and will help overall you have more intentional kind of like points of interest in your room. And it'll be more pleasing to the eye for sure. Also, another thing that will greatly help open concept in your area is to put rugs. I know you have the smaller rug underneath your coffee table, but I would opt for a much larger rug that goes underneath the couch and in front of the console, and then another rug underneath your dining room table. Adding rugs will help delineate the spaces. They'll help to kind of like corral all of the furniture together. It'll help ground the room more and separate the two spaces. As for the off-center fireplace, I think you were talking about painting maybe like a focal wall somewhere. And what I would do is I would paint the fireplace wall. I would make the fireplace more intentional. Like, okay, this fireplace is off-center and asymmetrical. Let's lean into it kind of thing. Let's go for it, right? So it already has a clean line where it separates from the wall. So you could do something textured, like you could do, like a Roman clay look or some kind of texture on it to make it visually more interesting and have more going on to the eye so that you don't have to hang so many items. Or you could go with a solid color that's different than your wall. Nothing too dark though, because we have the issue with the light sources. Nothing too dark, but different than your color of your wall. And do more of a gallery wall on it. Make them more collected together instead of separated like you have now, even though that's really cute right now. But, I think that it could further help the asymmetrical issue. I'll put in an inspiration picture of one that I found. It doesn't have an asymmetrical fireplace box, but it's more of a gallery type kind of layout. Could be really cool up there. And then just painting it a solid color behind. So if you were going to paint anything, that must be the first thing I painted. Another wall that you could make a focal wall is at the end of the fireplace to the wall with the light source on it, basically behind your TV right now. So the next one is from Molly. She says, I'm renting and I have the saddest outdated kitchen. My design style is sort of vintage eclectic with maybe a touch of boho with lots of plants and rattan. I just don't know how to improve this kitchen other than keeping it clean. Okay, first of all, your pictures are so good. I mean, your styling and your style on point. It's there. Like, it's totally there. The sunlight, so good. Like, it is like you get great sunlight, and I don't know if you just took a really great picture of this outdated kitchen or what, but I was like, oh, okay. But if you really look at it, this kitchen is outdated. For those of you listening on audio, it is very, very orangey wood cabinets. The tile is dated for sure. It's got like a strip in the middle with more of a design, but it's got square white tiles and then a design in the middle. It's got a stainless steel sink with an older stainless steel faucet. New appliances though, I think. Your stainless steel oven doesn't look very dated, and your refrigerator is completely detached. I mean, it sits outside of the cabinetry. It's not built in at all. It's just kind of freestanding between the kitchen and the dining room area. And then your floors are large format white tile. The countertops are Formica. It's dated. I mean, it's definitely needs to be updated, you know? And since you're renting, it's like, what the heck do you do? I've stared at your kitchen for a while, actually, and I'm like, what did she do? I think that you've added such cute elements to the countertops, you know, in terms of decor to try and bring in your own style. So I think that all of the ideas that I'm going to share with you that I've kind of come up with for your kitchen are all in an effort to add more things to distract from the color of the cabinets and the outdated feel of the cabinets, if that makes sense. So I think one is that you have a window over your sink. Definitely add curtains to add some softness, to add your boho, you know, it can kind of be in that realm. It could be something super simple, but I feel like adding something under that valance that has built in your cabinetry and over the window, I think would be really, really good. Like what I've done when I rented the kitchen in my last apartment, I did peel and stick tile. They come in so many different patterns, and it's something that you can remove. So if you feel confident in applying them and you get a quality one that doesn't leave any residue and it doesn't damage it, tile is pretty hard to damage, truly. So you can always get glue off and stuff. So I would feel confident in using a peel and stick tile in your kitchen, and just pick one that obviously goes with the cabinetry, because I imagine you cannot do anything to these cabinets. You cannot paint them. You know, you can't remove them. You know, you're renting. So that ties in the cabinetry, but it ties in your style and offers you something better than what you've got. I've also seen people wrap Formica countertops in a similar situation that they remove when they move out. I have never done that myself. I can't recommend it because I just don't know. I know that I've seen some YouTube videos of it, and I've seen people like remove it when they moved out. I think Drew did that in his bathroom, and I don't remember if it went well or not, but maybe you could look back at some of his videos. And Drew from Lone Fox. If you wanted to change something on the cabinets, I would say swap out the hardware. I don't know what impact it's going to give you, though. It's just a single hole. I don't think it's going to give you too much of a change that you're going to be really wanting, and then you'd have to buy all the hardware. So I don't know about that. You have like just the bulb light in the kitchen. So I would definitely change out the light fixture or put something up on it. I think you did that in the dining room. It might be your like the macrame one. So you definitely do something in the kitchen for sure. And a rug to break up all that white tile. You can get one that's washable, like a ruggable one or something that you can just throw in the wash. I would definitely add a rug. If you're feeling really up to it, you can update the faucet, give you something, you know, like something big that comes into the room that, you know, kind of like looks, you know, better than it just kind of disappearing. It adds an element. So I think all of those things will help you distract from the oranginess of the cabinetry, hopefully. And obviously with all your decor, it's so cute. I think there's those, if you can add any of those things, I think it's going to help, because I think you're in a situation where you're stuck with it. You know, it is what it is. But I hope that those things will help, because the sunlight in there is so gorgeous, and like it could be such a cool space if it was a different cabinet, truly, and it was more built in to include the refrigerator. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you are living in a temporary space and you want to make it feel more like home, I hope it gave you some ideas, or at the bare minimum just some encouragement that there is something that can be done. You just have to figure out what that is to you and what is going to make the most impact for you on the smartest budget, whatever you set for that. And like Caitlin, I hope that you do transform your house so that you feel happy in the next 3 years in whatever way that looks like for you with your space, happy with your space, you know, and not just hoping and wishing. And what if you do stay there longer? What if it's not 3 years? What if something happens, you know? Like, and you're just like, oh, we're actually staying here for 5 years. Oh, now it's been 7. Oh, it's been 10. And now you haven't done anything and you've been living there for so long. I wouldn't hesitate. I would dive in, but I know that I'm on that extreme side. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. As always, follow along on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe and the bell notifications so you know when I drop new episodes. I don't know why I said I'm just sitting here alone. And also, if you're following along just on audio, you can check out the YouTube video to see any of the pictures of the spaces that I've been talking about, or pictures of my own home. Wish me luck that this is the last week of our kitchen renovation. I'm very excited. And if you want to see me decorate the kitchen, finally cook our first meal, finally just be able to enjoy the space, head over to my main YouTube channel, XO McKenna, and you can check out the series and all the upcoming episodes that I'll have in the series. So I hope you guys have a great week. Bye, guys.